Yeah.
Anyway, boys, I got a gripe with the Aero.
Yeah.
I know Daniel doesn't agree with me. I know you agree with me.
God, I agree with you so much.
It's the tyres. I think Michelin have a part to play in all this.
Yep.
And it's the Aero, obviously. Because in my opinion,
Yep.
look, Binder, Pecco is still the best rider out there.
Yep.
And even if there was an Aero, he might have still won. He probably still would have won, but I just don't think the Aero lets the boys race. As in, they've got it's a shoot to the line to the first corner to see who gets out in front, and then they've got 4 to 5 laps, and then the tire's cooked.
Yeah.
Now the differences is back in the day, let's say 10 years ago, classic Rossi used to put pressure on just say Gibernau for 20 laps to make them put that into a mistake, and then it'd all build up to those last few corners. And
Because you can't sit behind anyone anymore.
Yeah, you can't.
No.
Even for the last few laps or whatever it is. Like, perfect example, Rossi, Marquez Dovi used to do that in Austria.
Yeah.
They just can't do that. And then they've cooked their front tyre, then that's it. It just doesn't allow for any racing. And then people say, it's boring because Pecco's dominating. He's winning by 6 seconds. It's not that at all because... everyone's done that. Marquez has done that. Rossi's done that. Stoner, Lorenzo, they've all done it. But it's more of a joy for them to watch it because they're better. And back then, with no Aero, there was no one to go with them. So you'd watch Lorenzo just say, who'd punch a minute 32 sevens, 20 laps in a row.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to catch him. It was amazing.
He's on rails.
Yeah. Where I just don't think if there was no Aero, then I reckon Binder would have just had a much better shot of winning that
And he
race.
also would have taken that chance of going up the inside on the brakes because it really affects braking as well. And we saw that with Bezecchi at Silverstone a couple of weeks back with the Aero wash that he had. And it's the same thing as F1 was a few years ago. You got out in the front and the guy behind you couldn't pass. And they know that. They want to get out to the front.
Yeah. I think it just diminishes the racing and then it's boring for the viewers. And I'm more than happy for someone to lead the race.
Yeah.
And lead it by 10 seconds on pure talent. And no doubt Bagnaya's got the talent.
Yeah.
He obviously does. But I just think it's not allowing other riders to then make that pass, to stick behind them and play that chess match that we all love.
Yeah.
It's just not happening. And I think that's just what I find so frustrating with it at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because there is, and that's a great point you touched on with the pressure, the pushing someone into a mistake. You can't sit behind someone anymore.
You can't do that anymore. And that's half of MotoGP.
It was, yeah. And even like going back to the Rossi days, you saw that. Marquez used to do that a lot.
All the greats did it.
Marquez used to sit behind, and he was faster, but he was just waiting for them
make a mistake,
their tires to wear out.
Yeah,
and that was the great thing about it, and it kept it exciting, even if they weren't passing.
Yeah,
it was a chess match.
Yeah,
it was anticipating that event to happen.
Yeah,
and I think in MotoGP probably 2 or 3 years ago was a lot of that.
Yeah.
It was a race to the last 2 laps.
Yeah.
And then it was an exciting 2 laps. But at least we got those exciting 2 laps.
Exactly
now we get
right.
nothing.
Exactly right. And it's just, it's like you can't even do a dive bomb anymore.
No.
Like, and what I think what's so frustrating is I can never normally predict a MotoGP race. I will never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I knew as soon as Pecco would last those 5 laps,
Yeah.
the race was done. And then it was done.
What did
And that
Nicky
was it.
Hayden used to say? He used to say, this is why we all do this, because anything can happen on Sunday.
There you go.
Yeah.
See? I love it. Where it was just too predictable. And, it's just... It's not great. I think it's just a warning for the future. Not every race is going to be like this. Alicia Spargo won 12th.
Yeah, that's right.
Silverstone. So but I think it's a warning of what can happen. If every race turns into that, then you're already competing with Formula One. Your racing needs to be good.
Yeah, it needs to be on point.
Yeah.
Look, I agree with you in terms of the Aero, and it's messing with racing as a whole. But you got to remember, this is a Ducati track. This track is suited so much to their bike. I think regardless of whatever happened, I'm just going to speak for this weekend, that was a fucking ride and a half by Pecco. Like, you look at his
100%.
lap times, they're at that 130 point whatever. So he did the yards. 100%. I think Aero might have had maybe 5% in terms of this race's play. I don't think Brad Binder could have kept up with him. And Crafar even said it. He had a tired Deg early on. So I wholeheartedly agree in terms of Aero fucking it for most races, like you said, 3-4 laps and they're backing off, then trying to go again, or someone's blown out a lead because of that. But I'll have to disagree for this week's race. I think it was just pure domination from...
Well, we'll see what happens over the next few weekends,
Yeah.
I suppose.
I get what you're saying. And look, maybe in another 5 to 10 laps time, if there was no aero, Pecco would have charged off.
Yeah.
Fine. But maybe in those 5 to 10 laps, Binder put enough pressure or put enough passes in to then
or
make a
shown
mistake.
a front wheel or something.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm getting to is undoubtedly Pecco is, the master at the moment.
And on the brakes
And
as well.
hate
He's
to
amazing
him.
on the brakes.
He's
Yeah.
amazing.
All he has to do is brake. That's a moment later, and
Yeah.
no one's ever going to pass him.
Exactly right.
Because the aero and everything goes
Yeah.
into that as well.
It's just you can't
And we saw that with Bez and
create that
Silverstone.
racing. Yeah. It's just not creating that racing that,
Yeah.
What we
So
want.
frustrating.
And
Yeah.
that is the thing. That's the essence of MotoGP. Is
Yeah.
that passing, repassing, what we used to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why everyone loves it.
I actually saw a funny tweet. I don't know if you guys know him. He's in the paddock. Matt Oxley, as like a
Yeah.
journo. He went up to the bikes afterwards, after the race, and they were doing all the tire pressure monitoring. They basically booted him out and then shut the roller doors. And he was talking about what's going on here? Why can't anyone see what these tire pressures are? So I think there's more to it than what we think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know Pecco came out and said he was struggling to find the limit because of the pressures.
Yeah, they need to do
And
something
even with
about
the,
it.
and the aero came into
Yeah.
play because of that as well.
And I think Michelin has a part to play in it as well for
Yeah.
the tyres.
It's getting ridiculous, the aero now. You got 2 wings on the back. You got now an extra wing in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got you got 4 wings on the front of the bike. Like that Red Bull KTM bike does look sick. I like the look of it, but looking back 10 years ago, those bikes, it was just so much cleaner.
Yeah.
And they don't need to go a second and a half faster.
No.
Why do they?
We're
need
not worried about that.
No, we don't even care.
No one cares.
No one cares. They're still going to be faster
Yeah.
than superbikes.
I don't give a shit about it's a fucking cycling.
But it's
That's not
We
very
just want
nice,
to see.
Tom.
Yeah.
But it's so true though. Like if you looked at Formula One from 20 years ago, those things were 25 seconds a lap slower, and the racing was still amazing.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
heaps better.
Yeah. Like
We just want to see good racing. I don't care if it's your 5 seconds a lap slower.
no, and when you go to the thing, it's the sound, it's the passing. It's not fuck they've done 132s around Phillip Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
like
that's
no one
right.
cares.
That's right.
So why make them? Why let them put wings on and make these things?
And
go
you see him
faster?
go full.
They need to learn from the Formula One's mistakes with this
Yeah,
era.
well, that's exactly what Toto Wolff said.
Yeah,
He came out and said they're making the exact same mistakes as Formula One.
Yeah.
Which they are.
they're trying to make the cars faster, and the racing then gets worse.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what will happen is the MotoGP teams will develop bikes without the winglets, and they'll be fucking back to those same times as they will in 5 years' time.
exactly
That's right.
right.
They'll
We'll get
develop
back
other
there
things.
anyway, yeah.
Exactly right.
So it's always the case with tech, you know.
And it's not the team's fault or Ducati's fault. Like they're just
Of
smart
course,
ones
no.
to be.
Who would have
within
thought
the
that the
rules.
Italians were going to be these aerodynamic kings, though?
Yeah, I know. It's
I just
crazy.
swear to God, like you think these Japanese or the
Yeah.
Germans and those, I mean,
Austrians.
those sort of countries, but I mean,
Well,
to 'em.
typically there were always a lighter bike and a more nimble bike at the Jap manufacturers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the Italian bikes were known for having a lot more power.
power and
Or
couldn't
Euro
couldn't,
bikes, I should say.
couldn't turn, yeah.
But yeah, they couldn't turn.
But now they can.
But yeah, now they've got it down pat.